I'm Dana Alvarenga. I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience at SlapFive, and joined on the stage by Kiely and Josh. They're going to give a quick introduction and then we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kiely Monteiro. I'm the Senior Advocacy Consultant at the Captivate Collective. We are a customer advocacy agency. I've been in the advocacy community customer marketing space for 7 or 8 years now. I started at an advocacy platform vendor where I was a customer success manager, moved into running the program. In my last role, I launched a community, and now at the Captivate Collective, I get to work with all kinds of customers on their advocacy strategies.
Hi, my name is Josh Buckley, and I'm the Director of Digital Customer Success at VMware. What our team does is we deliver customer success at scale to all of our accounts, mainly focused on our quote-unquote smaller accounts or long-tail customers. So we're really an at-scale customer success team. We don't have CSMs. We're really trying to bring a digital experience to help our customers with retention and consumption of our products. Before VMware, I actually worked right up the road here at PTC, where I led customer marketing. We had the same responsibility of the digital customer success programs, but we also had an additional customer marketing program similar to what people have been talking about here, reference programs, et cetera. What was interesting is both my current role and at PTC, the two teams that I've led were both in the customer success business. So actually, organizationally, I've reported into the chief customer officer, as opposed to being in a reporting up into the CMO. So I can bring a couple of different angles on where the reporting sits and what being in different organizations looks like.
Awesome. And one kind of interesting tip too, we're all from Massachusetts, so it's a full Massachusetts panel here. So hard act to follow with those aprons, but our fun fact is we're all from Massachusetts. So diving right in, and Josh, you kind of just led into this a bit, but where do you see and where do we see where customer programs should live? I mean, I've like you, I've worked at organizations where customer success reported into the chief revenue officer. I'm now directly reporting into the CEO. I've seen customer programs have a dotted line between customer marketing and customer success. So where do we see, or where have you seen that success of where like the true customer programs aspect of all this should be living?
Well, I think from my direct experience, I've not really seen a perfect landing spot for it, quite frankly. I think the real key is, do you have a clear remit, regardless of where you sit, and are your metrics aligned at the executive level? The OKRs clear? Are your goals clear in terms of being able to execute? I've seen pros and cons to both. I think pros, being in the central marketing organization, you tend to get a better lift from other programs. Quite frankly, I think customer marketing tends to be better funded if it's in the central marketing team. I know we're all struggling for funding, but I think my experience has been it's a little bit of a stronger team from a funding perspective. The flip side is you're a step away from the customers you're trying to launch your programs to, which is a benefit of it being in a CS org. One of the challenges, though, on the CS organization side is you can be isolated from a wider marketing organization. And I've been in situations where when we didn't have the charter, the central marketing team spun up what ended up being an overlapping program. So getting that charter right is probably going to go a long way towards kind of superseding where the organization actually sits. I have talked to other companies that do have customer programs that report directly to the CEO. They seem to say it's a pretty successful model, but it is pretty matrixed when you do it that way too.
I have that annoying answer. It depends, right? So I've sat in marketing, customer experience, and customer success. And like Josh, like marketing typically has the bigger budget, but customer success, right? They're so focused on making their customers successful, making them happy. So I think it's a great opportunity to live there as well. Sitting on marketing, right, you're closer to the people who are giving you content to give to your customers in terms of like education, success stories, all of that, and you can easily work with them to get all that content created. I did sit in a role that was customer experience that kind of oversaw all the programs, and that was really great. And that department reported directly to the CEO. So if you are at the size of an organization where you can have a group specifically handling all those programs, it's a great opportunity, and makes sure that you have visibility, right? We see those silos a lot where there's a program over here and a program over here. We're kind of all doing the same thing, but not really. So that helps to eliminate a lot of that.
Yes, I feel you on the silos. I worked in an organization where there was many, and lots of people would come up to me and my counterpart on the marketing side. I was the customer success customer program person. They were the customer marketing one.
Yep.
Borderline duplicate, but we did do some different things, and everyone needed to know, what did we do? So that kind of challenge that rolls into the challenges question of what challenges have you found really creating and finding that buy-in, because I've talked to many customers, many just people in the space, and a lot of times is either, yes, it's something that's being asked for, and if you build it, no, they won't come. So like how do you get over those challenges of one, either finding buy-in or getting around the ask just because they think you need to do it of a program?
Yeah, I can jump in. I was in a role where I reported to the CMO, and it was really tough to figure out what our top level goals were. So that was really challenging to make sure that there was that executive, top down buy-in for the program. So I think finding another executive sponsor who can help you figure out what are the top level goals you can tie your program to. And then I also ran a program that, we thought if we built it, people would come and it would be really engaging, but it was a really difficult audience. Accountants are not really prone to these types of programs. So really difficult to get a lot of them to engage. So we just had to try different things to work with what made sense for them and how they were motivated.
Yeah, I think a couple things that I've seen. I think one is, I think there are examples where I've gotten good buy-in from an executive level, because it's kind of hard to argue with the importance of a customer program. I can bring customers in as references or different ways to engage customers. But I found the hard part is that last mile execution, when you want to get out at scale with a large team, whether you can think about this from a sales perspective or CSM perspective, you might be able to get buy-in. You launch your program, you get a couple of enthusiastic people who are probably already inclined to be very customer centric and to showcase their customers, but that might be a very small percentage, and you end up with that customer fatigue situation that I think someone mentioned previously. So I think the challenge is really thinking through that kind of last mile. How do you get your program to scale and be something that a large percentage of the customer facing organization takes forward, because that's actually going to be a bigger critical success factor to getting to your metrics, which is ultimately what the execs look for.
Yeah, that fatigue. I think Brenda this morning was calling it crispy, which I really liked. The crispy customers, so don't get them burnt. So with that, I mean, not only getting the executive buy-in for the programs, but that internal education. So that internal education needs to be done not only with customer marketing, with customer success internally within your organization, but externally. So that's kind of a big crossroads that I've seen. And I think more and more that customer marketing is bubbling up and becoming a lot more prominent out there. It does confuse customers. They're like, well, I just talked to my customer success person and gave them my quote. I just talked to customer marketing. You're calling me for something else. So what's kind of the advice that we could share with the audience of some best practices around the education for how you're communicating to customers about the programs?
I think from a customer perspective, I found that the program is as important as the ask that you're making, so that customers can see what your ask is as part of an overall program. I know we've been talking about this week where there are different ways to make it easy for customers to engage the way they want to, if they just want to be able to get a quick quote out there or create a video or what have you. But to be able to put a program around it and said, this is the company program for you to do X, Y, and Z, why it's important, I think goes a long way versus an individual ask, which I agree can be very confusing for customers.
Yeah, I find that often customer success and customer marketing don't talk to each other enough. And I think it's so important, you can really be each other's best allies. So working with your customer success team, I know when I run programs, I send a gift to a customer for doing something. I send it from myself and the CSM. It's a united front. You don't look like there's all these disparate activities that are happening, and you look like you know what's going on and what all the things that they're doing for your organization.
About that. That's a great idea. Makes it seem even bigger, and even bigger thank you and an even bigger response to them. They know everyone's happening. So that's great. So we have a couple more rapid fire questions we're going to go through with Kiely and Josh up here, and then we're going to open it up to the audience because I know there's been a lot of questions and ideas around customer success and customer marketing. So hopefully those who've been talking about it this week are here to ask those questions. So Josh, what challenges have you faced with competing strategy for goals from marketing and CS?
I think it's what I found that's been challenging is I've seen the goals that customer marketing teams have done, and it's mistakes that I've made as well when I was running customer marketing. They're not really aligned to the core financial goals that say customer success is measured on. And I think sometimes it can be very easy to either do a couple things wrong. One is, number one, not aligned to the financial impact that the chief customer officer is being measured on. Number two is to look at how you can impact those goals and maybe look at it a little bit superficially. So you might come in and say, I can grow, revenue and ARR by X number of customers in my program. But I think the mistake I've made is that really what the measure is that they're being measured against, or what is the impact in their terms? Because they're not necessarily lined up out of the gate. I found that metrics between the organizations are often not well defined in customer marketing, and even customer success metrics can be very fluid. You can say retention, but it could really be measured a lot of different ways. So what I found is you really need to understand the metrics that customer success is really being measured against. What are they being comped on? How are the metrics being defined? And then you can align your program metrics to that set. I found has worked a lot better. I went in, one quick story is I went in with a program that was going to have an impact on churn. And the feedback I got from the chief customer officer was, well, we don't know how to measure churn. We know customers are churning, but we really can't measure it. And it gets into a lot of details around contract renewals, and a number of different complexities. So I felt not just aligning the metrics, but understanding the metrics. How are they really calculated? What's the maturity of the customer success organization's ability to measure continuously? I found measures can be what's actually measured and what's reported can be in different places. So I think it's less, the measures are easy to define. Once you really get a good handle on what they are, then you can base your program on where you can have an impact.
Great. And Kiely, when building a new program or a community, how do you prioritize those metric-based goals?
I think the biggest thing is tying to your top-down objectives. Sienna did a great session earlier. We talked about really making sure your program having an impact on the whole organization. But I think also balancing that with, you can't launch a program and think you're going to get 100 referrals right off the bat. And anyone else have to run a program like that before? It can be tough. So I think making sure that there is alignment on what the goals are, but also what's realistic for starting a new program, and making sure we're not going, too hard, too fast, and asking people for all these big things where we need to really nurture them first.
That's great. That's great. And I've heard from the community a lot of times where the customer marketer, customer advocacy manager really just has a tough time, either like both of you have mentioned, finding out what those goals are, or getting that alignment, or not having the partnership that they should. So some ideas that have come up are obviously join in all hands, do a presentation, or listen in on customer calls, join their executive business reviews they're doing. Any other tips that you would recommend to customer marketers in the room to kind of bridge that gap and get that better relationship with their customer success team? Either one of you can start.
Sure. Yeah, those are all great points and things that I found have worked in many respects. I think there's a couple of other things that come to mind. One is, if you don't really understand what the CSM team does, take the time to, and you kind of alluded to this, Dana, take the time to really understand, what does their day look like? What does their week look like? They may be staring down 10, 20, 30, 40 accounts. They might have 5 quarterly business reviews to do in a week. They may be dealing with escalations. It's not an easy job, especially when you've got a lot of bigger accounts or you've got a large number of smaller accounts. So if you can start to understand, number one, what does their day look like? And it may be a little different than maybe our understanding from, of a sales organization. And I think the second thing is, along the lines of that, is understand how they work and what are the processes. I think customer success day to day is becoming very process driven and very programmatic. So how that CSM may be working to say, okay, I've got to close X number of calls to action. I've got to make sure I finish all this information that's got to go into my platform. I have these type of outreaches that I have planned. So there's a lot of very systematic ways that they engage. So understanding that, and part of that is get to know your customer success operations team. they're the team that's usually very powerful in defining processes, practices, what systems are they using, what data is in the system, so you can find out if, say, a health score is a brand new score, which may not be useful for you, may give you a false positive, or something that you could look at and say, I've got 20 green customers in the organization, I can reach out to them. So I think the learning for me is really the more I understood how the CSMs work, how they engage customers, what's their day-to-day like, makes it a lot easier to think through, how do I embed my customer marketing program into how they engage, and find out, I think you find you get a lot more traction as opposed to being another person. While they want to help, they just may not be able to execute.
Totally agree with that. As a CSM, previously, I know it was so tough to manage my portfolio, share best practices, fight churn and upsell, renewals, handling all of that is a lot. And so understanding what your customer success team's goals are, how you can support them, and just looking at your programs and seeing, can I share any information that's helpful for them? Did you get an out of office that says someone went on maternity leave? That's a great insight into that customer. Or maybe you heard a success story that they shared, and now you can share that information back with the CSM. Again, making sure that you're aligned and you're all understanding the same information. It just helps your CSMs look better to their customers and helps your organization look like you're an aligned front.
It's awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Kylie. Thanks, Josh. We're going to take some questions from the audience. Kim, go ahead.
I was just curious because I think last year at this conference, I made a comment where I said, well, I avoid the CSM word like the plague.
Yes. Yes, you have said that many a times.
Because they feel that you tell me, like, on that day-to-day, like, is that true? Is that like they're just dealing with the challenges, people in escalation all day? Or, like, I know it's about making them successful, but I think for Microsoft where they launched the CSM org and then they got rid of it. They bring it back in the beginning. Like, it's kind of changing, but it seems like they're here to stay now. Right?
I'll just repeat for anyone that couldn't hear. She was just wondering is it really fighting challenges all day, but also, I mean, it is sometimes. Yes, some days are putting out fires all day long. But there's also then uncovering. That's the I see a customer hiding over there. No, not putting out fires. We're making solutions. And that's the thing. And that's where CS people succeed is as, yeah, there are fires, but how are you putting those into solutions? And that will be success stories. So yes, but that's why I personally love customer success, because it is all of the challenges that you end up in the end. And that's how I fell into it. You're in sales, you do all this fun things in sales, and you sell this customer and then, oh, you never see them again. Bye. No, I want to get the problem, solve the problem, and continue to make them successful. So there is, yes, challenges, but the good ones are going to be finding the success under it. So.
Yeah, and your CSMs probably have, some customers that are putting out fires and some that are really great. Like they're key customers. They're doing a really wonderful job, and they can help introduce you to them so that you can, share those success stories. And I think, you can help them to maybe pick up some of the lower customers and show them a really great experience and get them more into advocating for your brand as well. So definitely a mix in the CS world, not always rainbows and butterflies, but your CSMs can help you identify who some of those folks are, and then you can share those best practices with the rest of your customer base.
I'll just add really quick, it's just like in sales. You need those couple victory ones that will be on your side and want to help and partner with you, and then get those couple on the CS org that are the same, and they'll spread it within their peers. So.
Yeah, actually, I had a similar experience when I was part of the org that was first launching customer success. It was triage all the time. But I've seen, at least as customer success teams tend to mature, most chief customer officers want a full view of the health, quote unquote, health of their customer base, red, yellow, and green, or whatever the metrics are. So I found it's actually most CS organizations are at least trying to get there. So I do think, at the metric level and from a operational reporting level, you usually can get a sense of that from a operations team or a CS leadership team. And then individually, it's, what building those relationships so you can find out the state of the customer. And a lot of times there may be a customer who is in escalation who's actually a very good customer, or they come out of the escalation a reference, and that's happened before too. So that comes back to building the relationships with the customer success teams. I think Danny mentioned before is going in on executive business review or business customer reviews. Most of the time, the teams are talking about the state of the accounts. Are they healthy? Are they not? Where are we with this? What's our action plan? You can get a lot of good insights. That's where I learn about the examples of, well, we brought this new person in, new CSM, and they've turned that account around. Great, that becomes a great reference opportunity. So maybe a little work to either look at the data or to get involved in more meetings. We all, we don't need more meetings, but if we really want to tap into the channel, most customer success teams, as they start to grow and mature a little bit, really can have a good handle on who's who you can work with.
And as advocacy professionals, we can pair some of those really happy customers with those ones who are struggling, and that's going to help your customer success team get them more bought into working with you and just, uplift the whole company.
Any other questions out there? I don't have Robert's not here, is asking some questions last night. So there will be a new channel in this Customer X Slack community for customer success and customer marketing alignment. Robert Maddox was requesting that yesterday, having a shout out of that because he does sit in customer success. So